LANND TV is a show directed, hosted, and produced by Indigenous youth for youth. It is a show that aims to educate Canadian citizens about culture, spirituality, and identity through a fun and interactive show.
Hello everyone and welcome to LANND TV. I am your host Isaac, and for today we have a member of the Aboriginal Foundation program with us, Diane Simone.
Hi there.
So Diane Simone, tell us about the Aboriginal Foundation program.
So the Aboriginal Foundations program is a program offered through Ryerson University. It's a brand new program. We are going to be starting our first classes in April. It's a program that's specifically for Aboriginal students or Aboriginal individuals that want to upgrade their essay writing skills and their critical thinking skills.
Okay.
It's really to provide a path to get into university. So they might, after that, take a bridging program, or they might get into their undergrad. It can also be for people that are employed presently and they want to maybe start doing some continuing education programs. So it's just a really excellent way to get them involved in the university, and really looking forward to it. It's a 9-week course, starts April 1st, 3 hours a week, 1 night a week. And yeah, so that's this new course that we're offering, and I'm actually going to be the facilitator for it.
Okay, nice.
Yeah.
So let's take a backtrack a bit. How did
Sure.
the program come together too?
It came together, Ryerson also offers a summer experience program, which is a really excellent way to also assist the Aboriginal community with getting into the university system. It's a nice way to ease them into it, and all of the programs are specifically for the Aboriginal community, so it has a whole bunch of Indigenous curriculum as well. So when we did a survey and wanted to know how we could complement that program, and so they said, or some of the folks that we surveyed decided that it would be a really great idea to also offer a continuing education program to complement it. So that's how it got started, and it really is just a nice way to ease the Aboriginal community into university, because sometimes, as you know, mainstream education isn't always welcoming to the Aboriginal community in a lot of ways, and not necessarily on purpose, but it's just how it happens. So.
All right.
Yeah.
Why do you feel that is the case? Why do you feel that the mainstream community doesn't welcome or appreciate the Aboriginal youth?
I don't think this is something that's done on purpose. I just think that sometimes when people are creating curriculum and offering programs, that sometimes not everyone is always included in that planning stage. So when you're sitting in a class or program and you don't see anyone from your community being reflected, you can't really relate to the curriculum. It's not really culturally relevant to you. Sometimes that can seem like a less than inviting environment.
Okay. So are there strategies that you guys use to find a way to deal with that, or?
I would say probably the most important is making sure that the curriculum has that Indigenous knowledge within it. So a lot of the materials that we're going to be bringing in, actually, I'm hoping all of the materials that we bring into it is all by Indigenous authors.
Right.
And so that it has that curriculum that the community can relate to and feel comfortable and safe in that environment.
Okay. So I know you mentioned a bit about like the hours and stuff earlier on, about how the hours and how it works and all. Can you tell us a bit about the curriculum for the program?
Sure. I'm actually in the process of finalizing the curriculum.
Okay.
So I was actually going through a whole bunch of curriculum materials. It will be all Indigenous authors. So everyone that all the authors that the students or the participants are reading will all be exclusively from the Aboriginal community. It will reflect an Aboriginal perspective. Everyone in the group will be Aboriginal, self-identify as Aboriginal. We'll probably be doing check-ins and sharing circles and smudges and all those things that are, to make everyone feel welcome and safe and So it's, and on the curriculum also, I mean, one of the main reasons for the program is to make sure that everyone walks away with those skills if they decide that they do want to continue in post-secondary. So it really is also emphasizing on making sure that you know, you have the foundational understanding of how to write an academic paper, because that can be really stressful if you're starting in university and you don't have those skills, and also that critical thinking piece. So just some of the things that, if you decide that you want to be in university, even if it's a continuing education course and not necessarily a degree, that you have those foundational understandings in place.
Okay. So how long has the program been around for?
It's new.
It's fairly,
yeah.
It
I mean, it's been
new
in the
too.
planning stages for a long time. This is something that we've been wanting to do for quite a while, but now it's all coming together. So we're really excited about it. And I'm actually in the process of recruiting.
Okay.
So I'm pretty busy. I'm promoting it, and I'm recruiting for it. So I'm meeting folks right now who want to take it, and so I'm going to be doing interviews and of course, you know, writing assessments just to make sure that their writing skills are at a level where they're not going to feel like it's too much for them.
Okay.
And yeah, it starts April 1st, so
Okay.
it's coming up quick.
Nice. Yeah, it really
yeah,
is.
Yeah.
Also, how do you pick and choose who gets into the program?
That's such a. I wish I wasn't in that position. I think it's just to make sure that it's a good fit. So I'm just sort of looking at it from that perspective, just to make sure that the individuals that are taking it, that they're ready for it, and that it's not going to be a struggle, and that it's something that's going to be really beneficial.
Right.
So I'm hoping that, you know, everyone that ends up taking it it's you know, good fit. We can only do so much in terms of that
For sure.
choosing, but it's hard when you have limited seats. It's only 15 people for the first group, so and there was already quite a big interest in it, so which is good.
That's good. That's good though.
It's good, but you know, that maybe not everyone might get in for that first round, but there's going to be more in the future. So
For sure.
Yeah.
What are certain challenges that Aboriginal youth deal with
Oh, that's
in mainstream? What are
in
certain
education?
in education wise? What are certain challenges that Aboriginal youth deal with?
Well, first of all, I'm just going to, like, this program, it certainly is available to youth, but probably older youth.
Yeah, older youth or younger youth.
So
That's
for
what I was
younger
referring to.
youth, I would say the Foundations program, it's more geared for people that are, you know, an older adult or older youth group.
Okay.
In terms of some of the challenges, there's so many. I would say it's very complicated and complex.
Right.
We do this presentation, it's called the Status System presentation, and we get into all of the assimilation policies that have happened since contact and how that's impacted our community and continues to impact our community. So you have this intergenerational trauma that gets passed down, and of course, I know now a lot more people are more familiar with the residential school system that also has impacted the community quite a bit, and so you still have a distrust in terms of education, especially mainstream education. So I would just say a lot of the barriers that from all the assimilation policies that have happened historically and continue to impact our community is probably some of those most challenging barriers. Also too, if you're a youth and maybe your home is on a reserve, quite often the funding between Aboriginal and non-Aboriginal, there's still quite a big gap there. So a lot of reserves don't necessarily have high school, so sometimes you have to actually leave your house and, you know, go quite a ways, and sometimes you have to actually leave your community to get schooling. So that can create a big gap. But there, you know, there's a lot of gaps, and I'm certainly not the expert. I can just speak a little bit on some of the experiences I've had with some of the youth that I've worked with. But certainly it's there's barriers, but there's also tons of resilience, and it's you know, lots and lots of people that have really managed to go beyond those barriers too. Yeah.
Right. So how did, what are some of the challenges they faced while going through those barriers though?
I would just say, I used to work at a community agency, and so what would happen is I would end up with a lot of adults that, because they may have had to leave their home to go for high school, or there are these discrepancies in funding, or they didn't necessarily feel like the school that they were at had those culturally relevant curriculums that they needed to be successful, then sometimes I would see them as adults because there were big gaps in their education. And if you're having difficulty getting your education, that can create so many barriers when you get older, because now, as you know, we live in such a competitive world, and if you don't have a really solid education, you can end up poverty and all sorts of situations that can occur when you don't get a good education. So certainly education is so important. And on the other, of course too, it's like, if you're a teacher and you're teaching in the mainstream, when I went to teachers college myself, and when I was in teachers college, there wasn't a lot of curriculum around the Aboriginal community, and so you weren't getting that background in terms of how to really be able to teach properly. And so sometimes that, if you don't have teachers that are getting the proper training to be able to,
they're not going to be good teachers.
Well, it's not so much they're not going to be good teachers, but they may not have that knowledge or understanding to be able to responsibly teach for the Aboriginal community or about the Aboriginal community. So it's quite complex, in terms of education and barriers and in our community, and there's still a lot that needs to be done, and I'm hoping that this foundations program will help to improve that in a small way.
Okay.
Yeah.
What is the difference between the Aboriginal education and the mainstream education?
Well, I think ideally Aboriginal education would have that, as I mentioned, culturally relevant component. Everybody would be able to relate to it. You would see other people in the classroom that look like you, and you would have role models, and you would feel safe, and your voice would be heard, and everything in that environment would speak to you. Whereas quite often in the mainstream education system, it's just a situation where it just doesn't reflect everybody, and it certainly doesn't reflect the Aboriginal community probably to the extent that it needs to, for them to be, for us to be successful.
Right. Yeah. All right, Diane, it's a pleasure having you on our show today. Well, folks, unfortunately, that's all the time we have for today. So once again, I'm your host, Isaac. On behalf of myself and Diane and everybody else helping out on LANND TV, we're signing out.